Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rise and Grind in the Morning with 72 the Architect, aka Jason B. Today, we're going to talk about when does it matter? That's right. When does it matter? We deliberate constantly on communication and its impact on our daily lives. It has come to my attention that people often fail to truly listen to one another. And instead of relying on their past experiences and emotions to shape perceptions, they draw from wisdom. And today we're going to draw from Marcus Aurelius's wisdom on the Daily Stoic as well as meditations. So stay tuned here in just a moment and we'll get right to it. All right, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. So today we're going to talk about, when something really needs our attention and when we need to have actual feelings about a statement. Now, I'm reading from the Daily Stoic and Meditations. Daily Stoic is written by Ryan Holiday, and that's page 118 and 119 for April 16th and 17th. And then Meditations, I'm going to be using 4.7 and 7.4. So, the two questions are first, what can I pay closer attention to today? Marcus is quoted in saying, pay close attention to conversation, to what is being said, and to what follows from any action. In any action, immediately look for the target. In the words, listen closely to what is being signaled. Ooh, that's a big one. What is being signaled, right? Now, Ryan goes on to talk about how Marcus had no formal training in psychology and his words were important just as any doctor, but he asks you to become an observer of your own thoughts. That's right, your own thoughts, your actions, and what provokes them. Where do they come from? What biases do they contain? And are you constructive or destructive in what you're saying, right? But also, Marcus is quoted in saying in an earlier chapter in 4.7, he says, do away with the opinion I am harmed, and the harm is cast away too. Do away with being harmed, and harm disappears. Well, for many of us, that's easier said than done. How can I not be offended when someone really talks about my position? I don't know. Are you offended by what you didn't know and what you didn't do? Or what they're saying is their performance and their observation about you? I think it's very important that in order for us to communicate better, we got to stop listening with the emotional receptor, right? The emotional receptor is based off of our experience, how the traumas happened, what didn't work for us or what did, or when someone's saying that something completely false. When someone's saying something completely false, why are you so offended? Is it because it's incorrectness? Maybe it actually might hurt someone versus this someone is just talking out of their butt, right? But we can't ignore those things. We have to understand, what are we paying attention to, and is my attention necessary for what's being said? It's very, very difficult. But in page 119, he says the interpretation of a remark of a word is immense amount of power. It's difference between laughter and hurt feelings, and the difference between a fight breaking out, and two people connecting. This is why it's so important to control the biases and lenses that you bring to your interpretations, your interactions. When you hear or see something, which interpretation do you jump to? Right? What is your default interpretation of someone else's intentions? And if being upset or hurt is something you'd like to experience less often, then make your interpretations of each other's words, make them that they're possible, and choose the right inference from someone's actions, from and to their extensions of events, and a lot more likely you'll have the right response, right? What does that really mean? Well, it basically means that when you stop listening to be offended or to address or correct or act in authority, what are you learning from the other person? What are they saying? What are they communicating? What matters, right? And if it doesn't matter, let it go. They think what they think. I mean, a lot of times there's certain perceptions like old and young, and how young don't want to necessarily receive the elders, the wisdom. And why is that? Because we have modern conveniences, we have technologies that speed the response, a report, evidence. But evidence written always doesn't speak for it all. Sometimes experience and interpretation of the evidence can change drastically. So here's my short episode for Rise and Grind. When does it matter? That's the question of the show today. When does it matter and why does it matter? When it actually benefits your pocketbook or maybe your person who you communicate with, who you align with, right? Versus who you don't. And I think that many times when we look not to be offended, why are they saying? And how people use persuasive questions. Like the other day, I was in a clubhouse room where they were talking basically and saying, um, why do men overtalk women? You wouldn't think that'd be a persuasive, argumentative question, but it is. And my response to the person that propounded the question, I said, do all men overtalk women? Yes or no? And the immediate response to the room in which the people I was talking to, their response, no, not necessarily, not all men, but there are many in my experience that do. Okay. So if you could not answer yes or no, does it make the statement or question true? And they had a much more difficult time because they didn't want to get caught in a position. Well, my experience, many men have overtalked me when I tried to say something. Okay. What did you try to say? Did you make a point or a story? That would have been my next question. And it was my next question. Did you try to state your opinion, not necessarily as a fact, but something like, this is what I understand? Okay, you understand that. But also, we just might take what is maybe happens often is actually a smaller population and not such a bigger population, right? So how we not get offended? So I asked more questions. And the more questions I asked, it wasn't me making statements. It was just asking questions about, well, my experience is, for example, someone said, one of my colleagues said, I've been married to two narcissists. Okay. So if you've been married to two consecutive narcissists, what does that say about you? Is your discernment level in which you concluded in which a partner is valid a good style to decide which is a good partner? Or they lied to you, but you're more interested in an outcome of your thoughts for the future, but not on the present? Because all people relieve their tails. Like in poker, they someone has tails. Like that's why these guys they wear dark sunglasses, try to not give any facial reactions to no matter what hand they have, right? Not to show anything that is expressively revealing, right? But just taking that perception to listen, not for effect, but listen to understand, not be hurt, not be offended. Well, life takes on a whole different other meaning. And I think in this world that we're in nowadays, we're being more offended by more things. And then what happens? We divide each other. We don't understand each other's language. We hear these arguments, men versus women, pronouns, identities. My identity needs to be validated. You don't see me. You hurt me. You bully me. Or we use these false narratives. You offend me by being who you are. But then they also follow up by, I've heard these same people discuss in so many terms, there are no good men out there. Oh, yeah? Am I a good man? Oh, yeah, but you're a friend. Okay. But do I not represent a man? Yes. Okay, that's great. Now, can you really effectively say, oh, well, there are very few? Again, what are your lenses to evaluating to making agreements? How people love, how people agree, how they communicate, how they laugh, how they disagree. I think the power nowadays is to really disarm how not to be offended in disagreements. If you have an opposing opinion or opposing view, it doesn't necessarily have to be addressed in which it has to be fixed. Some people can agree to disagree and they can go about their days. But the important thing that we cannot forget is how far do we want the offense? Do you really want to break up a friendship or a family relationship based on a disagreement that means nothing to either one of you? I've seen it constantly. And one of the best examples is like when it comes to money, when you're earning your position or livelihood, more people argue about how to save, how to invest money, and rich versus poor. But a lot of times that comes from an emotional holding before it's an intellectual holding, right? EQ versus IQ. If people are more prone to save and not spend so much, they're not persuadable as easy. Hey, I have my needs covered. I save more than I spend. I live a good life. But if I start building abundance and I start building wealth, well, it's because you're wealthy and you're not willing to share more. I need to come after you. And we see these political sayings, take from the rich because they steal from the poor. Sometimes that does happen. I can't deny it. But if they're playing by the rules in which the chessboard is ruled by rules and finances, well, why should, if I have better emotional understanding of myself, why should I have to give more than what I've already given? Right. And we argue about taxes. We argue about things that, um, when we put somebody in charge to make decisions for the rules to exist, are we really being treated fair? And a lot of times people will argue and argue and argue, and it gets nowhere. Well, what about when it's something more personal? The way that you did your job versus way you didn't do your job. It could be a big load of a difference. I know this last weekend, there were some things that came across me personally, and I decided, you know what? That's that person's decision. I may be related, but I have no power what they say or how they feel and what they do with their property. That's their deal. And by doing that, I walked away and enjoyed my day. And even my girl was asking me, so what happened? Well, nothing. I just didn't engage more. And there was more of a barrage of questions. And the result came to, it turned out fine. There was no problems. There was no issues. So that's the thing is how can we take to deliberate on a situation at hand? Does it need an immediate reaction? Or that's the way that a person thinks. That's who they are. Accept them for being who they are and what they are. Well, that's all the time that I have for Rise and Grind this morning. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you subscribe and like, I appreciate. Also, send in your comments. I'm making more content more often, and we'll see you Wednesday between 7 and 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You all have a great morning. Enjoy your Monday. Y'all take care.